Hello and welcome to Contramundum. Today we are talking about balkanization, right? People leaving and resorting, the big sort, right? It's going on throughout the entire United States. CJ and I are examples.
Oh, Andrew's gone. All
Under
right.
he's
Uh,
in an office still under construction. What happened? They attack us already? Am I
you,
lost?
it was you. It was you. It was you.
Oh, this is my internet. Okay.
Minnesota,
Anyway,
man. Tim
that's why I'm
Walls.
getting out of here. Tim Walls is
Tim
ruining my
Walls is
internet. All
ruining the
right.
state. Um, yeah.
So yes,
So
I'm Andrew Isker and this is CJ Engel. Welcome to Contramundum.
yeah. So we're preparing for the big sort. I've already sorted. Andrew
Yeah,
hasn't sorted yet.
I'm still sorting.
Yeah. Andrew's in the process of sorting. He's pre-sorted, but I am post. No, I am sorting. And I am in the undisclosed location in one of the several rooms in our joint office building that we are. It feels very empty. There's an Andrew-shaped hole here.
It's a big hole.
It's a very, it's yeah, very big hole. Um, so yeah, so I got the other rooms. My office is under construction, reconstruction right now, almost done,
What's
and then probably all
what's this
next week
about?
I'll be putting up my bookshelves.
What's this about, CJ? You've made Twitter mad, right? X, right?
I've made them out on several. Was it the Is he talking about the
What did you
um
do?
the immigrants taking up all of our homes and the supply chain on the homes, or was it Churchill stuff?
Could be any number of things that
I
you've made the
Yes,
internet. Maybe Christian Troy could tell us
yeah.
uh,
Tell us which
precisely
one.
which one. you're gonna
But yeah,
you're
so
gonna
yeah,
have to be more specific. Uh,
Elon pays me good money, to make Twitter mad. So
yeah, he's taking you out to eat tonight, right?
yeah, that's true. That's true. Thank you to
every
Daryl Cooper and Tucker Carlson.
yeah, every other Friday.
Oh, he's saying the
Elon pays
Churchill
for my
stuff.
family dinner. Yeah.
So what was my what was my big one? Did I have a big one? I did
On
have a big
Churchill.
one.
Well, let's
Yeah.
save that one. Let's table that. Save that for later. Let's talk about balkanization first,
Let's talk about balkanization. Yeah.
because
So
it's happening, right? It
mhm.
is. It isn't just us. It's lots of people. I mean, obviously, you see, right, like friends of ours that are in Idaho. They're like, "Oh, these Californians are moving there," and that's happening. You see it to a large extent in Texas. You see it in Florida. You see it in Tennessee, where
As a Tennessean,
we're going to
I will
be.
say that we don't want Californians out here.
That's
Like,
right. Keep them out.
just on
How
the
do you feel
record.
about Minnesotans?
Yeah. Uh,
That's great. Well, it is it's something that is continuing to happen, and you see. I mean, we can pick on Michael O'Fallon a little bit. Like, this is a guy who that is his major freak out is over balkanization. These guys, these Christian nationalists,
oh,
they
is he
want.
still on that?
I don't even know if he is. I've been blocked
We
by him for a
blocked
long
him.
time.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he is. Like, he's not coming off that stuff ever, right? He thinks that this is an intentional plot by the People's Republic of China or something, some foreign government, or foreign governments are going to break up the United States and they're going to invade. Right? He's very paranoid about things like that. And on one hand, right, it is a frightening and terrifying thing. Any kind of massive political change and shift is scary.
Mhm.
But the people, certainly us and many of the people advocating it are not saying we want to have this secessionist crisis in the United States and have a civil war. Like, we're not arguing for those things or even hoping or expecting those things. It's rather, at least I'll state my view. My view is that it under our current regime, if you are not in a place that is even a little bit like self-consciously right wing or right coded, if you will, you are in a place surrounded then by enemies who want to destroy you and your way of life, and your family, especially your children and their children, are going to suffer. Right? If you're in a place where your enemies have political power, your children are going to pay the price. And um, we don't live like this generation that simply wants to make as much money as they can to enjoy stuff, and then you die, right? You build things for your posterity. You build things because you want a future for your country. And I look at it and I think a big sort, right? Moving to places where you are aligned with everyone else there, right? That's the only possible way you can do those kinds of
Mhm.
things. Possible way you
I
can
think,
build
yeah,
something for your posterity.
one of the things that's interesting is the people that are actively sorting are much more aligned than the people that are like refusing to move because they actually have this pie in the sky idea of what diversity and immigration is going to be for them. And so
Yeah.
I don't think that it's going to build the type of utopian communities that they think that they've convinced themselves is possible with
What do
mass
you
migration.
mean the Hispanic immigrants are all Catholic and pro life? What do you
Yeah,
mean?
I mean, it's just funny because like already you're seeing like in Chicago, like how ticked off like like the black community is for like
The
Mexican
migrants. Yeah.
immigrants or whatever. So
Yeah.
like I think whites are the only non-tribal people like around. Like everyone else is very tribal, so they think
Uh,
that way. And so I
Stephen
think that
makes that point in his book, right?
yeah, whites have been so propagated that they don't belong to anybody. They're just a bunch of individuals. But one of the things that's interesting is like what's it going to look like if you have a whole bunch of like heritage Americans that are basically moving into the same spot that are very aligned in their outlook, in their way of life. Like even as a Californian, and you're a Minnesotan. Like we're not really acclimated technically to the South, but we have a lot more in common
Yeah.
with them than we do the people invading us, right? Because we have that common American heritage to us. And so I think it's interesting that I think there's going to be a much more peace and camaraderie between people sorting than those who are going to realize that diversity is actually not a strength and it actually
Yeah.
just tears communities apart. So I think that's a really interesting development. And one of the things that's going to happen is I think there's going to be a lot of energy and momentum on our side and a lot of degradation and hatred and chaos in the places that we're leaving. I think it's going to exacerbate the entire phenomenon.
Yeah. Especially the other thing that is happening. I mean, we look at it from our side, but also, right, if you are a lib, and I know this is going to be hard for everyone watching and listening to like mentally model how those people think and get inside their brains. It's not a comfortable place to be. Don't do it. But like, for sake of argument, you get yourself inside the head of a lib, right? And they're incredibly parasitic people, right? They exist to destroy everything that better people have made for them, and seek only destruction and loss of life, right? That's their entire ideology. Uh, but if you make a place uncomfortable for those people, or if you make your state um, a place they do not want to be, um, then they leave and they go to California, or they go to a place where diversity is our strength, right? They go to these blue states and leave, get away and leave you alone, right? That's part of it as well. Like, you're not only going on the defensive, you're going on the offensive when you do this, right? The more of you there are in a place that already has a lot of people like you, the fewer of the people that don't like you and don't like them are going to stay there, right? They're going to say too, I need to get out of here. These crazy right wingers, they don't want us to protect trans 2-year olds, right? They won't let parents of a trans 2-year old do genital reassignment surgery on them, right? I can't live in a place like that, right? I can't live in a place that doesn't let people, vivisect their baby seconds before being born. I can't live in a place like that, and so they leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's as much about driving those people out and um Connor, as much about driving those people out as it is uh, bringing your people in as well. And I think that will continue quite a bit, right? And it almost has to, right? It almost has to for there to be any political resolution to the problems that we have, right? The problems that we have, it like, if you think about the titanic, massive political problems in America today, there has to be some kind of resolution to them at some point. And right? The one that nobody wants, nobody should want, is like war and violent conflict, right? And especially our side, because I don't think we would win in any kind of conflict or war. I don't think so. Um, so it has to be through other means. It has to be through other political means. And it doesn't appear that it's going to happen through electoral means, right? So those two options are off the table, right? So what else do you have? And when I say it, not through electoral means, I mean we're like, I think Donald Trump's going to win. I'm on record thinking Donald Trump's going to win. CJ disagrees, but maybe we'll change the opinion later in the show. Right? Even if he wins, say he gains seats in Congress and in the Senate, right? That's not going to fix our problems, right? It's not. And so then what do? Right? What else? What
Mhm.
else? What else is on the table, CJ?
If we don't win,
If no, if you know, for resolutions to the massive political problems in America today, right? We don't want civil war. Nobody should want that. We, pray that that never happens. And winning the presidency and voting for the right people in Congress to respect the Constitution. Right. That's not an option. Right. It's just not. That's pie in the sky thinking. It's
well,
not gonna happen. So right then what do we do?
yeah. So I mean, there's two options, and like for one thing, I think that at the federal level, things are so incompetent and they're so unpopular and they're so delegitimized. Um, it's going to take a while for the administrative state to kind of like unstructure itself, and but there is potential there eventually. So in the meantime, the health has to be in the grassroots, and I think like things like nullification are going to become very popular all over the place. Like even county nullification is going to become a very popular thing. It's going to be the mechanism, but I don't think it's the only mechanism. I think that there are still like here's the problem. Like I think Charles Haywood has said this. Like he's predicted that Trump is just he's got so much momentum on his side that the only thing that they can do is to just let him win and then try a good old fashioned military coup. Like that's kind of what he's saying. The problem is that the military is like the one branch of the government that they haven't been able to really capture
The
ideologically.
leadership, right? The leadership class, right?
The
The
leadership for sure, but like
the Pentagon, yeah,
there are thousands of patriots, like in the
yeah,
military. And so like they don't really have that momentum. And that kind of puts a cap on like at the end of the day, like that's how when things get chaotic, like and the military is tapped for law and order or whatever, like that's an area that they don't really have full control of. And so without that, like you are going to continue this like series of tensions between different factions of the government. So the point is that like balkanization is happening, the big sort is happening, nullification so secession's not on the table, that's not going to happen.
yeah.
But like these decentralized movements are going to happen, but I think that eventually there's going to be pressure in the center. Like it's an imperial government, like they dominate the Western world. And so there still is a lot of power in Washington. And I think there are things that can be done eventually, but the base has to be stronger. The big sort is going to make
Yeah.
that more clear. I think it'll take 2 decades probably for those things to unravel. But in the meantime, the thing that we can do strategically is to have organization and alliances on the ground floor. So like, this is one of the things about like, it was really difficult to move from my the world of my parents and grandparents and great grandparents and even further back. Like that was really difficult. And like even still, like at night my wife and I are like, did we really want to do this? Like this is crazy. And then you just like the people though, like people that we're aligning with. Like if I wanted to take political action, I need political organization. Like people make fun
Yeah.
of Barack Obama all the time for being like a community organizer, but like
Bad
look at what he
idea. Yeah,
accomplished. Look at
yeah,
he did it. Like community organization is what won the 2020 election for Joe Biden
yeah.
like radicalized organization at the ground floor. That's what it takes.
Why did the Summer of George happen in Minneapolis?
Yeah.
Right, it
Yeah.
happened. Right, that stuff's not spontaneous. You have people organizing other people to go burn stuff down for years. They've been doing these things. So you and of course, right, we're not talking about organizing people to do crimes. We're talking about organizing them to like knock on doors for good political candidates, or lobby, their county commissioners to not let the federal government dump 20,000 Haitians in your county, right? Things like that, right? Many people don't have that where they are. Like I mean, we have it to a small extent here in southern Minnesota where I am. Like there are many people that I know that are very patriotic and politically engaged, but it's still a very small number that actually care about these things and will show up for stuff, right?
Mhm.
I remember right after the 2020 election, there were different meetings and things about election security and things like that. There people would come give talks, and you would think hundreds of people would show up for that, and we had a few dozen, that actually cared, which is great. I mean, it's better than zero. It's better than many places in throughout the country, probably better than California, where you were. But you need like hundreds of people that care about this stuff and will make these things happen. And you have to be in a place where those people exist, where that stuff happens, right? You need the issue is organization at scale, right? You can't operate as an individual, right? You have to
Mhm.
operate as part of a group. And if you don't have that group, then you're on your own. I mean, just look at, I mean, we're going to talk later, I think, in a little more detail about the Aurora, Colorado thing, but you need to think about like within that frame, right? If that kind of stuff was happening in your town and, um, breaking news, it's going to happen to your town eventually, right? When a cartel comes and they take over an apartment complex in your town, right? Do you have the people to deal with that
Hey,
at scale?
let's respond to Cryptic. Um, so yeah, and they were justified in doing so. Do you
Correct.
understand? Do you understand like what the Italian gangs did to Chicago and New York? Like this is a big deal. Yes, they were right to do that. Like they should have opposed them. And the Venezuelans are worse than the Italians. Why? Because they're further away from the center of Anglo America. So as bad as the Italians were, like it wasn't the wealthy, successful, established Italians that were coming over. It was the same thing. It was the same. This is what
It
happens.
was
It's like,
the criminals and dregs of their society that were coming
yeah,
to do bad stuff.
yeah.
Um, and
But
I mean, yeah,
like, Italians are are Europeans, and so like they're closer to the core of Heritage America, and so they're not as bad as like this is so basic. Like every wave of immigrants can like brings the types of people in that take us away from the core of American culture and American heritage. Yes, that's a problem, and we should be very critical of the Ellis Island generation. They constituted the New Deal coalition in the 1920s and 30s, which basically restructured the entire United States economy, transitioned it from a constitutional republic into the managerial state. The
yeah,
consequences of the Ellis Island generation and Italian immigration, we're still feeling it today. And in fact, that set the groundwork, as Paul Gottfried says so many times, for the civil rights movement and the posification of America.
yeah.
So yeah, very critical of the Ellis Island. So nobody should be using that against us. That's
No,
part of our argument.
yeah. That precisely right. The problem even then wasn't, oh, we just need to deal with illegal immigration, right? That's the bad immigration. It's like, no, the legal immigration is the problem too, right? You go to many cities in America, and I mean, just look at what was that, like a week or two? This town in Texas uh, erected a giant statue of a Hindu god in their town. In Minneapolis, they're broadcasting the Muslim call to prayer over loudspeakers, right? Like that stuff cannot be happening in your country, right? They have to go back. And it's a question now where the best time to do that, send them back, was the 90s if people listen to Pat Buchanan, but instead you get, right, in the wake of the Cold War, the Republican and Democratic parties both were united in globalizing the planet. And America is the world hegemon, the empire that rules over the planet. and you're bringing all those people in here. You're sending industry overseas, and you're bringing overseas into America,
Mhm.
and so like that has to come to an end. It has to stop. And
Mhm.
I mean, and you look at like Trump, right? His ideas, which they treat as unbelievably radical, like having tariffs, right, and repatriating industry. Oh my goodness, right? That is so crazy. That's so anti-free market. Um, like no, no, and those are actually like moderate solutions to the problem. Deporting illegal immigrants, mass
Yeah.
deportations of illegals. That's the moderate
It's a
solution.
moderate position, but also like I've been thinking a lot about this too. And like I think in a lot of ways legal immigration is worse because what
Absolutely.
so illegal immigration at any time, just by enforcing the law, you can bust them out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right now, you could deal with it if you
Yeah.
had the will to do it.
Legal immigration, you actually have to supersede your agreement with green card holders, visa holders, birthright citizenship recipients. Like these are all legal, right? You have
Yeah.
to supersede and contradict. So someone has to exercise political will. Um, and it can be done, but it's a lot harder to sell to the Republic.
Yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
it,
look at,
yeah.
for example, CJ, um, Ilhan Omar is a legal immigrant to the United States,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, exactly.
she has to go back. Right? She does not belong in our country. She needs to go back to Somalia, and it'll be incredibly hard to do that, to send her back. Right?
Mhm.
How do you do that? Right? Apart from massive political will within the political class. I mean, I don't think it would be unpopular actually
Yeah.
to send her. Like if you did a poll right now, like you show a person the video of her saying, "I represent Somalia." My job is to send money back to Somalia, or the former Somali president saying that about her, and her nodding her
Mhm.
head along. Or you show people that video and ask them, should she be sent back to Somalia? Like 65, 70% of the country would be like, yes, yeah, she
Mhm.
should.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, who's the that did the big poll and they polled Republicans and Democrats, and even 60% of Democrats said deportations should be a policy option.
Yeah, we should do mass deportation of
Axios.
illegals.
It was
Yeah,
Axios, super mainstream, left
yeah,
leaning.
left. I would say left wing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So like, it's like this is a very popular issue, um, and like it astounds me. And like, let me just like, I'm not going to black Bill, but let me just say Donald Trump is really still pushing for legal immigration expansion.
you gotta have the H-1Bs. I know.
It's but he's trying to run as a moderate. He doesn't
Yeah.
realize that like everybody's been more radicalized since his first run. Like everybody's on the right of his original base. His
Hmm.
base is white working class Americans to the extent that they're still a majority. They
Hmm.
want him to do something massive and radical,
Yeah.
which includes deportation, which, by the way, is not radical. It's a very
No.
standard procedure. California was doing it all through the 90s. California ICE would work with ICE all through the 90s, and they'd go
Hmm.
through communities, round up illegals, and bust them out. California was doing this. This is
Yeah.
normal, very American, very conservative policy. This is a very standard procedural law enforcement, right? So like this is not some radical unique thing. This is California and Texas were doing this in the 90s. Eisenhower did a big one. Truman, was involved in some of them. Hoover and Coolidge were involved in some of them.
Hmm.
This is American tradition. Deportation, put this
Yeah.
on the record. Deportations are a great American tradition.
Yeah. And so, back to the to our overarching point here, at least right now, right? If like say those things don't happen, say Trump is not able to accomplish the things that he says he wants to do, right? He wanted to build a wall, and that kind of sort of happened, but not really, right? And now Kamala is saying she wants a wall, right? Say he gets in, he's not able to do mass deportation, he's not able to deal with the immigration problem. Now what do we do?
Yeah,
Right? That's the question. Now what do we do?
yeah.
Right? And
We
the
sort.
only way to prevent Aurora, Colorado things is by building your own very strong town where instead of having it half libs and half, patriotic Americans, uh, it's like 98% patriotic Americans and 2%
Yeah.
that probably are, you just don't know.
This
Right.
is so this is an interesting. I know it's a joke, but like
But
I
is
was.
it?
Have you
Yeah, read
seen?
read it
We're
out
gonna
loud for the audio folks, for the people
Yeah,
that are going to listen to
we're gonna
audio.
meme this into existence, but it says build little walls around the illegals that won't leave. Have you seen the map of like where the illegals are? It's like
Yeah,
6 spots in California,
it's not a
like
joke. Yeah.
Chicago, like New Jersey, Connecticut, right? There's all these like, Minnesota, obviously, but like there's all these pockets. Like all you have to do is make it completely economically unfeasible to leave that area.
Yeah.
Like,
And also, I mean, the things too. I mean, you're starting to see this in states like Texas and Missouri and I think Florida, where they're beginning to prosecute NGOs that are at Louisiana too, like facilitating these things. Right. That's the other big one. Right. If you make it dangerous legally for these NGOs that facilitate all of this stuff, right? How are hundreds of thousands of people from Africa coming to across the southern border, right? Well, NGOs are paying for flights, right? People that are making like $1 a day, how are they paying for a international flight to Mexico,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Well, an NGO that gets tax money is doing that stuff, right? Openly committing immigration fraud because the federal government's never going to do anything about that. They want this, right?
yeah.
And so it falls to the states to begin doing things about this. And like if you have the state of Tennessee, for example, make they know exactly all of these NGOs, all of their boards, and all of the employees for them that work there, right? All you have to do is say you do any of this stuff in our state, we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. We'll raid your offices. We'll put your people in jail. Right? You start doing stuff like that, and they won't do it in your town, even if they target your cities for this stuff. Right? They won't do it if they're
Mhm,
scared. They'll do it in some blue state where they openly want it to happen.
mhm.
And so,
Yeah,
how do you build little walls? That's how you do it.
this is really good too. Like I was thinking about this because we were working on
Yeah.
I can't say too much. Very exciting projects happening in Tennessee, but um and they
You
will
were
be
working on
announced.
not sending food to the big cities.
We are this is a priority of ours is but I can't say too much now. But yeah, but like this is the type of stuff. It's like produce local and help your people out.
Yeah.
And yes, like give them the Bill Gates food. Like, like that's yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's a perfect solution. That's a wall.
Yeah, the hard thing, I think I agree, with Cryptic here. Like we're talking about like issues at scale, and like if like at least farmers around here in Minnesota and Iowa, places like that, like their profit margins are extremely slim. They survive based on massive subsidies, right? You start engaging in those kinds of things, they're done, right? It's over. And then guess who gets to buy their land? Bill Gates buys their land, and China buys their land. All right, they go out of business. So I don't think that is necessarily the means. I think it's more uh, building building strongholds in red states to force the issue politically for state governments. Right, that can be done. Right, and they are responsive to political pressure in this way. Right, if you have towns like ours that we're going to be building, right, where there are a lot of people that are very politically motivated and very well organized and are out punching their weight class in terms of influence, right, you can have as much influence as one of the big cities in Tennessee, right, and so, right, you could push your attorney general to just jail people that are in NGOs, right, that's the way I think, right, using political power to crush these enemies that are doing this horrible stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's I mean, politics has to be a part of this too. I mean,
yeah,
like I voluntary mechanisms can help. You could solve the gas station problem like that. But
yes,
I don't think that we can avoid politics. We're not
no,
libertarians. We're not going to just have pacifistic solutions all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The way to deal with power is by confronting it with power.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why politics is important. And that's another reason, that I moved here, is because I think we can politically get involved here. There are people that are willing to do that. Whereas in California, it's like, throwing little pebbles into an ocean, in terms of
Yeah.
influence and combating the administrative state.
This point right here, right? Everyone on the right, from Connor, wants to talk politics. Nobody wants to do politics. Politics is hard work, right? It's hard work, right? Yeah. Connor brings up Dusty Devers, right? Like, what Dusty did? I mean, we had him on a while back, right? He went on, knocked on every single door in his district and talked to people, right? That's how he got elected. And
Mhm.
and especially at state level offices and the like, right? If you do that, if you just do the hard work of going and talking to every single person, you usually win,
Mhm.
right? A race that way. I mean, unless you're in like, if you're in like the some 90% lib district, well, yeah, good luck with that. But if you're in any kind of place that's competitive, right, and all you do is just talk to people, because here's the other thing: is like most people don't vote, right? When we're talking about politics and doing politics and things like that, most people don't even vote, right? If
Mhm.
Trump wins, the reason he is going to win is because a whole bunch of people that never ever ever vote are going to wake up on election morning and take time out of their day to go down to the polls and vote, right? Millions of people who otherwise do not care and never bother, right? Like, we're interested in politics, and everyone listening is interested in politics, and so we all vote. Probably most of us, or some people would vote, or they don't because they don't agree, like, or they're libertarian or something, right? But they're engaged at the same level that they would be a voter, right? Almost every one of us is wait, we're the outlier, actually, right? We're the outlier here. Most people don't. Most people just don't care,
Mhm.
and so, right,
Well,
if
like
you
historically,
drive
like,
turnout,
yeah, I haven't voted, in California because there's no point. So like
yeah,
that's
why?
another reason
Yeah.
people don't vote. So yeah, I think a lot of, and that's going to be an interesting aspect of the big sort as well. Things are going to homogenize.
They're
Democrats
going to become
areas and
much more liberal in liberal areas and much more right wing in conservative
Mhm.
areas. Like, that's part of it, and like, that's like policy, like actual policy is is downstream of political sentiments of the population, right? So if the population is far more right wing than just your country club, chamber of commerce conservatism, right? Then right, then I'm laughing at Connor's comment there. Uh, then
oh,
you can actually accomplish some things.
yeah, I disagree with Thomas here. I think basically there's no electoral option or solution, especially
From the top down, yeah.
at the federal level. But there is political solutions. All it takes is men willing to use power. Politics is a very important aspect of our lives, and there are political solutions.
Yeah, yeah, I think there are too. Right, there are that's always the thing. Like, usually when people say there's no political solution, right, they mean there's no electoral solution, which I'm kind of mostly in agreement with. Right, well, we'll just vote for the right guys and that'll fix it. Well, that's true. That's not going to work. But politics encompasses much much more than just voting. Way more. And
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
even like, I mean, we could talk about the like doomsday scenario, right? Of Trump wins, and then they steal the election from him, right?
Yeah,
They
let's do
maybe
that.
maybe they,
Let me throw an ad in real quick.
yeah. Time for CJ's very first ad read. We got sponsors. I don't know if you guys saw the description
Yeah, I
on
have a
the
script.
show
I'm
today.
actually going to just read the script.
Let's go.
All right, ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Here we go.
Are you a Christian struggling to find companies that align with your values and beliefs? Squirrely Joe's, Andrew, you gotta
Oh, here
prop
we
that up.
go. Here it is.
Squirrely Joe's has you covered for all your coffee needs. Actually, this is actually a serious ad though. Like, but for real, like we need Christians doing businesses. So this is actually a very serious ad. If you're buying coffee online, you need to check out Squirrely Joe's. for real.
Yeah.
So like all their coffee is hand selected and roasted fresh every day by a family of fellow believers. Try them out. You'll savor exceptional coffee. Andrew, aren't you
It
drinking it right
is.
now? It
I'm
is
drinking it right
exceptional.
now. Not just because we get to say this stuff, right? And they're like, yeah, well, I actively sought them out because the
Yeah,
coffee I had it in
exactly.
Ogden, right? I had it in Ogden at the conference there. It was really good, right? And I'm like, oh, I want them as a sponsor. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I mean, so the coffee's good, but like investing, it's not only this is a political statement. Like you're
Yeah,
investing your money into companies that are making these products, and this is how they survive and feed their family. So this is important to do that. Like they're
absolutely.
good people, they're making a good product, and the money that you're sending them is going to a good cause. And I think at the end of the day, like we have to make economic decisions based on that. I mean, that's part of the whole big sort concept is like
Yeah,
give money to your friends and stop giving it to your enemies. And so like that's part of this too. Like it's easy to find coffee anywhere. Like coffee's a big market, but give your money to your friend. Like if you're buying products, give your money to your friends. Like you don't need to give it
and
to coffee shops that are supporting, transing kids
with the big
and
trans
inviting
flag up
illegally.
front.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So like, enough of that. Like, let's put our money where our mouth is. And so like, one of the things that Squirrely Joe's, said to us is like, if your audience wants to try one, they can have it for free. You just have to go to their website, squirrelyjoes.com/contra. And you do have to pay for shipping, of course. But go try it, like pay for the shipping, get some coffee, to your house and sign up for more. I highly suggest everyone do that. They're a good sponsor. They're taking a risk on us, and we want to give
yeah,
them our business. So
yeah,
that's the pitch. Go do
yeah.
it.
And it's good. Like I mean, that's everybody. I mean, just about everybody drinks coffee, and this is really good.
Let
Right?
me spell it for people. So like it's
Yeah.
SQUIRRELLY Joes JOES.com/contra. And yeah, free bag of coffee. Why not?
It pairs extremely well with spearmint zin as well. Just throw that out there for all of you zin enjoyers. It is a wonderful company and great people, and we want to support our people. Right.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line, and it's part of the same thing that we're talking about. Right. The big sort isn't just what we're doing geographically, relocating and being around our people, which is good. We want to do that in person as much as possible, and give our money to our people face to face, but also the broader sphere, right? And many of our people, right, where are they coming from? It's because, right, we're all friends online, right? and we're turning online into real life. And so the more of that kind of stuff we can do, right, the better off we'll all be. So
Mhm.
changing gears a little bit, right? Changing gears. Yeah, I just don't like Cool Mint Zin very much. That's not what we're changing gears to. Yeah, I would love to be sponsored by Zin. If any of the Philip Morris people want to reach out, you can DM me. I don't think it's legal to, actually. I don't know. This week there was an interview, a podcast interview on a podcast slightly more popular than Contramundum, just a hair bigger than us. Tucker Carlson interviewed Daryl Cooper, Martyr Maid, right? After we already interviewed him, by the way. And what did they talk about, CJ? Have you watched it?
Yeah, I did. I listened to it today. One of the things that I was struck by is like we can debate. Well, if we're allowed to debate Churchill, I don't know. Like maybe we're not allowed to debate him. That was pretty apparent this week.
In the
Um,
reaction, yeah.
yeah. So like first of all, before we get into like the content, I did listen to it, and I was just struck by the way that they postured the conversation. Like
Mm-hmm.
so everyone was like, Cooper and Tucker go on and they talk about Churchill as a villain and Nazism as like heroic. And then I listened to it
Yeah, yeah.
and he said, I was being a little provocative to my friend. And I said, I almost describe him as a villain. you know, and he's like, he actually said this, I was exaggerating.
Yeah.
And so like then you're like listening to it. And so that word villain was in Cooper's mind just a way to like provoke the conversation with his buddy. That's how they said it. That's
Mhm.
where that word came from.
Oh, there's the Zin alarm.
And you're like, so he's not out there saying that Churchill is the worst guy in history, all this kind of stuff. He's really just rethinking the dynamics of World War II, like the early years of World War II.
Yeah.
And then into the part where he's like, and just because I think that, you know, Churchill was, and this is what he said, he was culpable of turning the conflict into the war that it became. He didn't
Yeah.
even say that like he initiated everything.
He caused World War II. Yeah. Yeah.
He
No.
said he transformed, and this is Pat Buchanan, this is Ralph
Mhm.
Rako, this is like AJP Taylor, the British
Mhm.
traditional historian. This is very basic stuff, but basically, Churchill's decisions transformed a series of tensions that were very real.
Mhm.
Hitler was not a nice person, but it transformed the
Whoa.
tensions
You're telling
into
me now for the
World
first
War
time.
II. And that's what he specifically his claim against Churchill. And then he
Yeah.
said, right after he made all those statements, he said, just because I argue this doesn't mean that I think that Hitler and Stalin were protagonists. So, like, all of
Yeah.
these things about how he was lionizing Hitler and supporting like Nazi
Yeah.
apologia,
Yeah.
it was all made up. I was
Yeah.
like, I was shocked. I was shocked that they would misconstrue this conversation. So,
I wasn't shocked that they would misconstrue it, but I mean, most of the people talking about it, like I saw like Samuel Say and Owen Strahan and people like that. All right, say, oh, he loves Hitler. Like, no, he never said that. Like those guys, I would be shocked if they even sat down and listened to the entire 90 minutes of that interview. Right? I highly doubt it that they listened to it. I highly doubt that they are familiar enough with the conflict, the details of the conflict itself, or have the intellectual bandwidth to understand the arguments that Cooper was making.
yeah.
I'm not saying that to be insulting or rude to those guys. Like literally, I don't think they understand the conflict at all.
No,
And
no.
and so they're reacting to people's reaction and just bandwagoning on it, right? Or yeah, Russell Moore, you know, tweeting out a comic book cover of like Captain America or whatever. Like, and Cooper, I think in the interview himself, he and Tucker both agreed that it is this marvelization of history that we look at, and that's what founding myths do. Is right. You need this conflict to be a conflict of pure good versus pure evil because it's the foundation of what we tell ourselves that we are the good guys, right? That America is the good guys, that Western Europe and NATO and the entire global order, we're the good guys. Why are we the
Mhm.
good guys? Because we defeated the most evil man who has ever lived, right? And then you like actually examine it. You have enough historical distance from the conflict itself, right? If you can separate yourself from the emotion of it to actually examine it and see, right, could it have gone differently? Are there things that our side did that made it worse, right? Made it worse for millions of people who died. Were, was there a way to avoid those deaths? Right? Like asking those questions. Those are questions you're not allowed to ask when something has reached the level of historical myth. Right? This is you're dealing with religion and not history at that point. And so right that and they brought up obviously the Ukraine war with this because
Yeah.
right Putin is another Hitler and Zelensky is another Churchill and this is why we need to give hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine to fight this war because we've got to stop Hitler 2.0 from taking over the world. And when you examine it, the conflict and realize, right, it's that isn't what was even going on then, much less now. The entire like illusion
Well, this is, I
falls
mean,
apart.
this is what Daryl was saying at the very beginning is like This is very important, by the way. Like you can disagree with Churchill assessment and stuff, but this really is the foundational myth. This is the
Yeah.
thing that like structures our approach to the world. It helps us
Yeah.
to interpret the friends and enemies in foreign policy. It informs and founds the very institutional parameters of the way that we approach not only foreign policy but also domestic policy. Like if we see evil people, we interpret it in terms of this standoff between the Axis and the Allies. This is how we not only this is how we approach the present day, but it also structures the way that we approach the future and interprets the far past. So founding mythologies, and Tucker also made this point, that mythologies are very important, and we're not making the case against the existence of mythologies. We need mythologies to actually be a people. Every people
Yeah.
needs a mythology. Like we have our like American Revolution is a mythology that formulates and structures old America. Unfortunately, that old America no longer exists because there's been a new founding. And so like the combination between the lessons of Nuremberg and the civil rights movement constitutes the pillars of the American post-war liberal consensus. So
Yeah.
it's like so what happens when you begin to poke at the mythology is you are poking, you're basically throwing a grenade into like a bear cave. Like that's what you're doing. And it does
Yeah.
no, like you cannot survive. Here's the thing: a political order cannot survive the crumbling of its mythology. And so when you poke this bear, you're challenging the most powerful empire and ideological empire in world history. That's what's going on.
Yeah. And also, yeah, that this is, the point I was going to bring up as well. Christian says here, Daryl also made a good point about how nobody cares about the Revolutionary War anymore, right? And I talked about this on the 4th of July on X, right? I pointed out that, like, when was maybe The Patriot was the last movie that Hollywood has produced, and even though like Mel Gibson's kind of on the fringes of Hollywood, about the Revolutionary War, right? And there was a kind of trashy miniseries about Washington spies and things like that. But aside from that, there's nothing. Right, there is absolutely nothing out there that's produced about the American Revolution, even though the stories from that era are amazing. Right, there's so much content there that you could mine from that they're desperate to find anything to make a movie about. They don't do it because it's not part of the mythos of America anymore. That's completely gone, and it was replaced. Right, it was replaced by the Second World War. And you can just, like, if you go on, Hulu or Netflix or Amazon Prime or any streaming service and just scroll through the movies, right, you'll find a new movie every year on World War II and the Holocaust and things like that. Every single year, there's another one, another movie. Same thing with like video games, right? Be awesome to play like a first-person shooter from like the American Revolution. I don't know how you'd work out the mechanics of, loading a musket, but they could figure that out. Right? It'd be kind of fun. It would be awesome, right? And they don't make those, right? What they made. I'm not a gamer. You guys have to forgive me. An Assassin's Creed one on the American Revolution. I think that's maybe the only one I've ever seen, right? And they don't make games about this stuff. They don't make movies about this stuff. It's completely out of the cultural discourse, and what has replaced it, right? World War II has, right? Our true our true founding myth of the new America, right? So that is, and it's one of the criticisms people have brought up, and I think maybe it's fair. Right? Churchill himself, right? If you brought him back from the grave and he could see London today, right? Would he be happy about that? I don't think so. I think he would be.
This is important too, because like
he himself didn't want this, but it's what he created.
Exactly. I'm very critical of Churchill's decisions and his motivations, in his like lust for glory, like all that kind of stuff. But I also think that he loved Britain. He loved England. Yeah. He loved he was operating with sort of like a like visions of grandeur, delusions of grandeur, or whatever. Like he
Oh
loved,
yes.
and so like so some people are like, oh yeah, he would have been totally woke. Like some critics on the right, right? So
Yeah.
like he would
Yeah.
have no, he
I
was
don't think
not.
so.
No,
No.
I mean he was like anyone else in his age. Like I don't think even FDR would appreciate everything that's happened.
Yeah.
Like they were men of a different world. They were progressives. They were very racist. That's what's hilarious. Like they were
I
way
know.
they were very white supremacist, very racist. Like which was like that's historically a normal like way to think as a European.
And the left criticize, like, so the
That's
Euro left
what's funny about
especially.
like Owen.
Yeah,
Like
they
he
hate him.
posted
Yeah.
the picture of Churchill. He's like, "This is my politics." I'm like, Churchill is way more of a kinist than like Stephen Wolf. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Of course he is. Yeah. Yeah. Or
So
anybody. Yeah.
it's all goofy, and it exposes like the Looney Tunes nature of like Big Eva.
Yeah. Well, and you're not dealing with serious people, right?
No,
Anyone who's like read anything, like so much of history is it, like, history itself is a battlefield, and there's never,
cryptics, yeah,
oh
cryptics right here. Like this is completely right. Like all of
yeah,
our heroes
yeah,
were way more racist than we're allowed to be
yeah,
today
you
in our
can
world.
read what Lincoln wrote about black people,
Yeah,
right? And many like right-wing critics today will point those things out. See, he was racist. um and all of the heroes they have are that way, right? Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt, Woodrow Wilson, right? They
yeah,
like the woke, like, take Woodrow Wilson's, did they take his name off of Princeton? I think some
yeah. Of
plaque or
course,
banner.
they took down Churchill
um,
statues
yeah,
in England.
yeah. And so what we're dealing with here is not, and I don't celebrate that, right? Just like I
Right.
wouldn't like it when they finally take down Abraham Lincoln's memorial, right? It's not going to be a bunch of, Southern frat boys that go tear it down. It's going to be, right, gay race communists that
Mhm.
smack, swing a sledgehammer at his face, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not going to celebrate that, of course not. And so, yeah, I mean, all of this stuff ultimately, points to the mythos that undergirds the entire order, has to collapse. It has to go away, right? Even if you critically examine Churchill and you think, okay, here's the things he did wrong, here's the things I don't like, here's where he's a bad guy, and um and you do it in a even-handed, fair way, right? That takes these things apart. I mean, that's the tone you get from the conversation, right? Of Tucker and Daryl, is these are not like these insane ideologues that are litigating this conflict, right? And they're going at it like, oh yeah, the Third Reich, they're the good guys, right? They're looking at it in a very even-handed way, very
Right.
reasonable and rational
Right.
way,
Right.
and looking at the people, the scions of the narrative, right? They're the ones that freak out. They're the ones that lose
But
their
like,
minds.
was it Al Mohler or was it Owen that said that like Tucker was pushing Nazi apologia?
I don't know if Mulder said that.
One of
I
them,
would
I
be
think it
surprised.
sounds like something Owen would say. But like,
Yeah.
so like it's so crystal clear that
Hmm.
exactly what they were saying, what they were doing. Like, so like if they can't even handle like very clear, clean speech about what they're doing, which is basically just calling into question the wisdom of the Allies' political actions before the
Hmm.
in the lead up to the war. That's basically what they were doing. You know, and hindsight is 2020, and we should have the advantage today to make these criticisms. Like that's
Of
one of the
course.
benefits of learning from history. Like, but
Yeah.
suddenly, like, but it's just a mythos. We're not allowed to
Yeah.
question.
And the question too, that this has bugged me since I was like, uh, 12 years old, when you first, get into your, spurgery about World War II when you're in like seventh grade, is, um I looked at the conflict and I thought, wait a second. I just discovered that this other guy, Joseph Stalin, he killed like 30 to 40 million people, and we were on his side.
Hmm.
I had no idea. We were on the side of this horrible monster of history, and we fought to keep him around. What is going on here? Right? Why am I not spending an entire year of Soviet crimes class? I'm spending an entire year in Holocaust class. right? Why is that happening? And it really bothered me, right? I had no one would answer the question, right? I asked my teacher, why do we support Joseph Stalin, right? Why were we on his side, right? Well, we were co-belligerents, we weren't technically on his. I'm like, no, but you just put that picture up of him, of FDR and Churchill and Stalin sitting there together, all
Well,
happy.
just like in your mind, replace Stalin with Hitler. What would they
Yeah,
do today
yeah. Imagine if FDR and Churchill are sitting, smiling for the cameras with Adolf Hitler.
against Stalin?
Yeah.
You know what would happen? They would think it's normal because people are
Yes.
downstream
Yes.
from the myths that were created.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
You can have, right, a totally
yeah,
alternate history
yeah,
where that happens, and
yeah.
we would be if not celebrating him, we would just be downplaying everything, right? It would
Mhm,
be
mhm.
it would be like, well, like you would have teachers in public school being like, are you really sure it was 6 million? Right? I don't think so. Like that's what they would be doing that. They're like, that's propaganda, I think.
Sounds a little high. Yeah.
Yeah, like they would be doing that. And like that's
No,
like Owen Strachan would be tweeting about how these horrible communists
yeah,
on the internet are besmirching his
yeah,
name. Right?
yeah.
He would be, right? Because you're downstream of
And
those things.
it's funny because like people always say that the victors write the history. I don't think they really understand the implications of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's not just that they write the history,
It
but
says right here the good guys won every single time. What are the
exactly.
odds?
The history percolates down into the very soul of a people. That's what the mythos means. And they interpret history based on that. I don't think like people understand when we say that, it means like the structure of our interpretation of the world is based on written history.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so yes, those images disturb us, like the idea of Hitler being there, because we've been trained to. And if we had
Yeah.
taken Germany's side, which we almost did, there was a lot of German pressure, like in Chicago. What's that?
Mm,
Colonel McCormick or whatever his name is. Like there was
mm.
like Charles Lindbergh. A lot of people had like German like sentiments, and
And
if
within England too.
we win, we would say,
Yeah.
well, at least we're not speaking Russian, or whatever. Like that's just how people are, and I'm not even criticizing that. Like
Yeah, you could see, like, you could write an alternate history, like some kind of novel, like The Man in the High Castle, but
yeah,
actually, good. Like, I think I mean, I like Philip K. Dick, but I think it's his worst work. And right, you would have President Lindbergh, right, Prime Minister Mosley, and Hitler there, and our entire apparatus, right?
yeah,
Every public school teacher, all of academia, every corporation, right? You would have movies being pumped out every single year of the Soviet gulags and how horrible they were, right? That's what you would have, right? And our entire moral imagination would be built around that, and we'd have the same mythos of we're the 100% good guys and we're the 100% bad guy. They're the 100% bad guys, and we fought this horrible figure, um, and defeated the great evil. And then you would have a Cold War between the United States and Germany that would last 80 years until, right, America wins or loses, right? I mean, that's how history would have played out.
mm-hmm.
And that like people can't see this though. They don't realize that the Marvelization, the comic book story that they've been told about these things, is not actually real. Like if we zoomed out 1,000 years from now and examined the Second World War and think about it from that perspective, right? If you're thinking about this conflict from a 1,000 years or 2,000 years from now, right? The same way we would look at the Punic Wars and things like that, right? This is actually like Michael Knowles quote tweeted me arguing about this, right? Like, well, we still think the Carthaginians are bad and they should have been destroyed, right? It's like, yeah, but we don't base our entire moral imagination on Scipio Africanus versus Carthage, right? We don't think about Hannibal every single day.
Yeah,
Maybe you do. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, but we also like they're also, we consider them good because they led to us.
Yeah.
Like so,
Yeah, we do.
like that's why we believe it. Like Why do we take the side of like the like our American ancestors in like the French over the English in the Revolutionary War? Because one led to the way that we are today and one didn't. One was opposed to that. Like that's the way it's like history structures our own friends and enemies. Like it plays itself out going forward as well. And I'm not even critical of that. Like God didn't
Yeah.
make all of us to be like enlightened, rationalistic machines. Like
No.
He created us to be the recipient of the ideologies pushed by our leaders, and that's why leaders have a very big
Mhm.
like burden of history on their shoulders to carry that. Like that's a huge burden for a leader to carry, and that's why, like for instance, Christianization happened by converting the emperor, converting the
Yeah.
kings. That's just the way that like why did European um, peoples become Christian? Because that's the way that they were trained. Because Christianity won. That was the
Yeah.
mythos of
Yeah.
medieval Europe.
Yeah. If Hannibal had won, right, it'd be the same thing. The entire story would be totally different,
Yeah.
right? And we would think about things in a different way. And so, but when the mythos begins to break apart, right? When you look at it and this thing you think is black and white is actually much more gray. And I look at that not in this like postmodern sense that well everything is gray and there is no black and white, but rather, um, right? It's our job to take the gray things and make them black and white. And I think that's what Tucker and Daryl were trying to do. Is it's actually a lot more gray than you think it is, but now let's sort out black and white from there, right? What's good and bad, right? Well, um, obviously, no one is going to say, yeah, the Third Reich was great. They're the good guys, right?
Mhm.
Even though every neocon on Earth is saying that's what Daryl said,
Well,
he's not
that's
saying
because
that.
another element of this is that they're ideologues, so they can only think in like Marvel categories.
Yeah,
They so
yeah,
like we like being particularists, we're not bound by those constraints. They're
yeah.
moralists. They have to think in terms of this guy was good. This is like Spider-Man. And like they have to think in these like really stupid third grade categories.
This guy's Voldemort,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, like you look at
And there's a
these
reason
things.
that Marvel, came into the American cultural scene. Like
Yes, or like Star Wars. Like Star
yeah,
Wars
Star
is
Wars. Yeah.
based on World War II, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's all
literally,
creating the mythos. And again,
it
like I
lit-
just have to once again make the pitch for the Cultural Cold War book by Saunders. I forget his first name, but like he just talked about like and it makes sense. Like during the Cold War, you like because we were at an ideological war, and so we had to create this universe of justification for American involvement in the world. And America were the good guys that won World War II, and then our allies became evil, and we had to confront them. Like this was just part of the churning of cultural products that could help justify American action in the world.
right. I've got to get going in a few minutes here. I want to get to this question from Cryptic because I think it's a good question.
Usually, I'm the one that has to bail.
I know. I'm trying to get a house done here, man.
Oh, okay.
Uh, you're all done with all that. You got all the
Yeah,
time in the world.
we got 2 more hours.
That's right. But before we get to Cryptic's question, which is a really good question, now it's my turn, to talk about products. Right. I told you guys last week about Ion Layer and how awesome it is, and how I'm feeling great because of it. Right. I haven't been able to work out all week because I'm working on the house, but even there, right, I was up till 2 a.m. the other day, tiling my basement floor, getting that all done, and I had so much energy. I could have kept tiling all night long. Right? You know why? Because of Ion Layer. Right? Because now my NAD plus levels are through the roof. Right? I feel like a 20-year-old man again. Right? I'm like that. What's like Brian Johnson? Right? Brian Johnson Moonbra. Right? He's reversing his aging. That's how I feel on Ion Layer, right? So NAD plus, right? This is a thing that a lot of people, especially if you're into like health supplements, things like that, right? You usually have to get it with a shot, right? They tell you, drop your trow and take the shot, right? And I don't like doing that. I don't like needles, right? I'm not a needle kind of guy, and so right? This is is transdermal, right? That is you just put the patch on, leave it on there for like 14 hours, and your skin absorbs it, just like your skin absorbs all of the fake chemicals on the clothes you wear, right? That's why it should be 100% cotton. I think this isn't actually, right? Well, this your skin's absorbing NAD plus, and you can go to Ion Layer to get this. Right, go to Ion Layer, promo code Contra, where you get $100 off. It's pricey, but it's actually way cheaper than if you were going to go to the doctor and have them shoot you up with it. Right, that's really expensive. This is much, much, much less expensive. So please check it out. See if it works for you. Right, money back guarantee. Right, so if you're like, Andrew sold me a bill of goods, this isn't working at all, which is not going to happen. But if you felt that way, right, they'll give you all your money right back. So it's worth trying out. That's my ad read for today. Right? Did I do better or worse than you, CJ?
You did. You had a better start, but I think I sold the product.
You're a better salesman than me. Is that what you're saying?
No, you're a better salesman. I'm a better networker. This is
Okay.
my cup of tea. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I lost the comment. Where did here we go? Right, we're an empire. We have a myth that backs that up. Right, saving the world, saving people in World War II. Right, if this myth goes away, CJ, right, what comes next? What's the myth that replaces it?
That replaces World War II myth?
Yeah.
Whew. I don't think we can tell yet.
I think we can.
It's also
I think we can.
No way.
I think we can.
The assassination attempt?
No, I don't think so.
You need a great world historical conflict.
Well, you do. I mean, to fully replace it, right, in the same way, right? Yeah, I agree. So in that sense, no, we can't know exactly what replaces it. Although, right, if we lose, I know what's going to replace it. Is it'll take a new form, right?
Well,
it'll still be there in the cultural memory somewhere.
Yeah.
But just like wokeness in general, that white people are evil and they need to be eradicated. They're the scum of the earth, right? You could see how that could become the mythos in America easily, right? Where it is like 1619 Project for everything, right? All of Western history is evil. Everything Europeans have ever done, that must be destroyed. Right? I could see that happening easily, right? And then World War II goes out because it was, right, mostly white people that won World War II, right, against the big bad evil, Germans and Japanese and Italians, right? And now it's all of them, Allies and Axis, are the bad guys, and we need to eradicate them, right? That could be the new myth that replaces it.
Well, the funny thing is, like, when I'm like saying things that are like that the Allies believed, like immigration, like Eisenhower, every time we say something that would have been believed by any of these allies up to the 90s, what are we called? We're called Nazis.
Yeah.
So it's like everything's Nazism now. Everything except for the left's agenda is Nazism.
Yeah. I mean, you had this, there was a tweet by Cenk Uygur, however you pronounce his name, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Don't like that guy. But like he said something like, all right, if you agree 2% with Trump people, right, welcome to MAGA. We love having you on board. You're the best, right? You agree 98% with the left, Nazi, right? You just agree 2%, right?
That's why the left is being able to push things to the left.
That's why they win, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
So that's the irony of it all, is conservatives are way more tolerant.
Yeah. Yeah, if we were like the least tolerant wins, that's one of Nassim Nicholas Taleb's mantras, right? Yeah. The least tolerant wins, and he's right. He's right. We have to be far less tolerant because they're not, and so I mean that's what I think in a positive sense, right? I don't want to end this on a black pill, all right? That's positive one is it would absolutely have to entail a recovery of historic Christianity. Right, whatever comes next, right? Recovery of historic Christianity and respect for Western tradition and heritage, right?
Mhm.
It will have to be undergirded by those things. So that's why, right, when people are talking about the Crusades, which, right, Crusades a mixed bag. There's a lot of good and bad there, right? It is, it is, but overall, right, you have Christians defending the West against Islam, right? That's what it was, right? And when you look at the Crusades, not just the incursions in the Middle East, it's also the Balkans and Eastern Europe and the fight against the Ottoman Empire, right? All of that's taken together, right? Lepanto, the Reconquista in Spain, right? Those were good things, right?
Mhm.
And so people criticizing it, right? People attacking it, like that's got to stop, and that's got to come to an end,
Yeah.
right? And we have to say, no, these are heroes. These are heroes. El Cid, heroic, right? That's how you have to look at it. And right, it dovetails in really well, like Connor here, right? Dovetails well to what we've been talking about the whole time, right? What happened in the Reconquista, CJ? Right, when the Moors took over, where did all the Christians go?
Um, when what?
When the yeah you were he was busy texting.
I was
When
texting.
when the Moors took over, right? Where did they go? Right,
Oh, I don't know where that went.
uh, they went
I
into
haven't
the
studied
into
it.
the mountains in the north, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
And tiny little stretch of territory is all that was left. That's all that they had left.
It took 700 years to retake it.
Took a long time, right? It took
Yeah,
centuries, and that's the kind of scale we need to be thinking in, right?
yeah.
Is right, you retreat to these areas because what happened there, their backs are, all but literally against the wall, but you are able to consolidate all of your people together and fight from there. And when you talk about the big sword, the great sword, right, that's what we're talking about. Is you're consolidating all your people together. Now I mean, that's what, just in military terms, what a retreat is, right? You call it a retreat, not because you're like, man, we love losing. Losing's awesome, right? That's not why you sound a retreat. You sound a retreat so you can win, right? You reconstitute forces so you can then carry out operations once more, right? Because when you're all spread out and all these units are cut off and everything else, now you bring everybody back, together. I'm talking like Kamala Harris, to like she's talking to a kindergartner, right? You bring everyone back together and then you go fight again, right? That's what a retreat is for, right? That's what the big sword is. It's not, oh, we want to balkanize and tear up the United States. No, we want to win the United States, right? We want it. Yeah, you regroup in defendable positions, right? You go to a position of strength, like state secession is saying here. You might not like you joined later. You might not like the beginning of the show where like secession's probably not going to happen, but you know, forgive us for that state secession. Right? All right, you do this,
I'm all for
and
secession. It's just not
oh
gonna
yeah,
happen.
I am too. Yeah, I
I
mean, people are going to label us secessionists or whatever, but like, uh, right? If that were a possibility, right? Okay, yeah, but I don't think it's a realistic. Like, do I want Governor Christie Nome as my great leader or something? Like, we don't have we don't have the kind of leadership that existed in during the several secession crises in the United States. Right, not just in the 1860s, but even before that, when New England was threatening to secede. Right, the kind of leadership that existed there is no longer here. We don't have the same America to do those things. And so, right, you reconstitute strength, and then you can begin to fight again. Right, that's the point of these things. Right, everyone, like, you wouldn't look at a retreating army and call them cowards. Right, guys who are busy fighting and then they fall back to reconstitute. Right, you don't. Oh, what a coward! Look at these cowards. Right, that's not what you're doing. Right, you are building up. Like, you look at David in First Samuel, where he's fleeing from Saul, where he goes to the cave of Adullam and brings in all these men that are enemies of Saul together, and reconstitute. You would be like, oh, David, what a coward. What a
Well, I mean,
fraidy cat.
look at Luther and Vermigli and all the people that fled Catholic Europe during the
Yeah.
Reformation. And
John
then,
Calvin fled France.
yeah.
What a coward. what a coward, man. Like, these are people willing and ready to die for what they believe, right? Nobody calls them cowards. And so anyway, the point is to win, right? That's the point. That's why you do things, because you want to win, right? Not because you want, like, you continue doing the same thing over and over again that causes you to lose, right? It's insanity. And we need to do different things, and that's what this is. So that's all the time I got for today here. What do you got to promo, CJ?
I mean, a lot, but not yet. Big things are happening in Tennessee, and
Incredible things happening
it's
in
really
Tennessee.
cool to be part of it. And I will say that, like, I mean, everyone listening to this is a dedicated, loyal listener. You don't listen to any other show while Contramotive's on. I get that, but keep your eyes open and your eyes open and ears open as well, because we're going to be talking about, big things in Middle Tennessee. This is excited, and try to encourage Andrew to get down here. Like, I would be emailing him, emailing him, sending him Bitcoin.
Why aren't you down there yet? Yeah,
sending him ContraCoin.
Yeah, we should make our own crypto.
All right.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's great. I don't have. I do. I wrote a piece about these things, about the big sort. Actually, I don't even know what they're going to title it, for the American Spectator, and so that will be in this quarter's edition of the American Spectator. I think it's only in the print edition, so it's expensive. But if you're a subscriber to it, I know many of you are readers. That you read chronicles, you read journals like that. The American Conservative, and probably if you read those, you probably read the American Spectator too, right? Well, I was fortunate enough to be asked to write about what we're doing in Tennessee for them, and so that'll be out there. So if you read that, let me know what you think, and I think that's coming out in a few weeks. So that's my big news. Very excited about that, but unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. No time for We're All Gonna Make It. I'm sorry, not enough time to have him on.
You say sorry like a Minnesotan.
I gotta get some twang in that, huh? I'm sorry. I sound like George W. Bush. Don't want to do that either.
It's like the most Canadian.
I'm filled with remorse. I'm not even going to use the word. Filled with remorse that we can't have him on today. But thank you all for watching, listening. Please, like and subscribe if you have not already. If you listen on audio, go leave us a 5-star review. We've been getting bad reviews. People just don't like you, CJ.
We've been getting bad reviews for the podcast. Really?
Yeah, we're like, it was at 4.6 and now we're down to 4.5. So people are tanking us. We're being attacked. Probably libs, that hate us. But
Blake Callen's alt accounts or what?
He's making lots of them. So go on there, boost it on Spotify too, everywhere, because it helps people find the show, and share it. Tell your friends. Right, tell them all about Squirrely Joe's Coffee and Ion Layer as well. And support our people, right? Support people that don't hate you, but are your friends. So anyway, that's all I got. Thank you all. Stay peacefully, incredibly dangerous, and we will see you next time.